welcome to Between the Before and After, a podcast about the stories that shape us. I'm your host, Coach John McLernan, and each episode I bring you an inspiring guest with a moving story that shines a light on the power of the human spirit. Before we dive in, I want to let you know about two very important things. Number one, the stories shared here are often gritty, raw, and vulnerable, and very likely will include speaking about sensitive topics suited for a mature audience. Number two, this podcast is also broadcast live on YouTube, Twitch, Twitter, LinkedIn, and Facebook. So on whatever platform you follow myself or Freedom Nutrition Coaching, you have the opportunity to participate in this discussion. You can comment on the live stream, and we encourage your participation both by commenting and asking questions. And so this podcast is about exploring the stories that take place between the before and after photos, not just in the realm of weight loss, but in all areas of life. So let's dive in. All right, welcome back to another episode of Between the Before and After. As always, I'm very delighted to have a guest on here today, Kevin Palmieri. Hopefully I said that one right. All right, cool. He's a podcaster, a speaker, podcast coach, and podcast consultant. So I think it's safe to say that Kevin's a fan of podcasting. So with years of study and self-improvement and over 700 episodes, probably maybe over 800 by now.
900.
Over 900 now. Okay,
900,
so we'll just keep upping the number here. So, Kevin says he's learned a lot about a lot, but even more about himself. And I think that's the beauty of even something like podcasting, just exploring our history through conversation. And so welcome, Kevin. It's a pleasure to have you on here today, man.
John, thank you so very much. I'm excited to see where we go here. And I could tell from the behind the scenes energy that I'm going to have to keep up with your energy. So challenge accepted, my friend.
Yeah. Well, you wrote that like some people find rock bottom, that you found out that rock bottom has a basement. And so what did you mean when you wrote that?
Yeah, so when I was 25, by all outside standards, I had everything any young man could want. I had the body of my dreams. I had just done a bodybuilding show and won. I was very lean. I had an 8-pack, like all the things you could want in a body. My girlfriend was a model. I had a high-paying job. I had a sports car. I had a very nice apartment. By all outside standards, I had anything that any young man could want. But inside, I was insecure. I lacked confidence. I was uncertain of my future. And my girlfriend actually ended up leaving me after that bodybuilding show because I was a shell of myself. And in retro, my hormones tanked. I had an eating disorder for certain. And I just wasn't the man that I promised her I would be to her. Now, I wasn't bad. I wasn't abusive. I wasn't any of that. Yeah. But I just wasn't the man I promised that I would be. And when she left me, this was my initial rock bottom moment of my bills doubled. Cool. I live in this 2-bedroom spot by myself. Okay. And now I have to look at all these mirrors of why did she leave? I thought everything was hunky dory here. I don't understand what's going on. And was when I first initially got into self-improvement. So every night before I went to bed, I started with positive affirmations like many people. And I said, I am talented, I am handsome, I am worthy. And this last one, John, was the problem. This year, I'm going to make the most money I've ever made in my entire life. That is what I leaned on because I don't think I was ready to face the internal mirrors of what I was dealing with. So the next year starts off, and it is wild. So I was a foreman for a weatherization company. So just think our job is to make state and government buildings more energy efficient, whether it's in the attic, working on doors, working on windows, whatever it may be. We get to the end of that year, and I had been on the road for 10 out of the 12 months.
Wow.
So hotel to hotel, I'm never home. But I'm standing at my kitchen table because my girlfriend took my kitchen chairs, my table chairs, and I didn't have any because I was never there, so it didn't matter. And I slid open my final pay stub of the year, and I made $100,000 at 26 with no college degree. But nothing changed. Same exact feeling of when she left me, I had to face all of this internal dialogue of you thought this external stuff was going to bring you internal happiness, and you were wrong again. In that moment, I was living for most of my life unconsciously. I thought, okay, what's the opposite of unconscious? Hyperconscious. And shortly thereafter, I started a podcast called the Hyperconscious Podcast, which has evolved into where we are today. But that's something that I did for a couple months. It became a passion project. It was a hobby. And as it started to grow and I started to have conversations with people, it was harder and harder and harder for me to go to work.
Yeah.
because it was out of alignment. So I was calling out of work. I was leaving work early. I was showing up late. I was kind of just hot dogging it. I wasn't working very hard, and I didn't care.
You're starting to
And
sabotage yourself.
yep,
And
self-sabotage.
so I wanted to just hit pause there for a sec, because
Please.
this is like a really great story. But I wanted to go back to, because I spent some time involved in the bodybuilding industry, not directly as a competitor, but it's sort of in the supplement industry. I ran a supplement store. I did coaching, that sort of thing. Did you get into bodybuilding with the idea that cultivating an admirable physique was going to give you validation either from yourself or from other people?
I would say early on. So when I did the bodybuilding show, I was 25, and I had been in the gym since I was 16.
Right. Yep.
So at that point, it was nine years of really consistent training. The only reason I did it, John, somebody came up to me in the gym and said, "Hey, you should do a bodybuilding show. You'd win." And I was like, I don't even know what that means. And he's like, "Go see this guy. He's a great coach. He'll take care of you." And that coach didn't work out, but that's a whole nother story.
Yeah.
And I think for me, I liked the discipline that it created. I did enjoy the fact that it was like a challenge to be as disciplined as I was. But early on, one of the reasons I got into fitness for sure, I'm 5'4". So
right. Okay.
there's only so much growing I was going to do vertically.
Yeah.
And that's
actually a great height for bodybuilding.
Yes.
A lot of people have this idea of bodybuilders that like they're these huge, 6'4" behemoths, like Lou Ferrigno or even Arnold is 6'3", I believe, or at least he was. Now he's maybe more hunched over, but on a smaller frame, you can actually build much more visible muscle, and you don't have to build as much mass to look impressive and getting lean and so on. So but that's just me nerding out a little bit on that on that side of things. So you decided to get into do a competition. And, but the idea of going through this, doing a prep, doing a cut is, as you mentioned, it's extremely taxing. And even when done right, can really kind of mess you up hormonally. And so what was the experience of kind of doing your cut and prepping for the show?
Oh my goodness. It was hands down the hardest thing I've ever done. So it was 3 months. I ate the same thing. I ate chicken, broccoli, and rice, eggs twice a day. I had like protein and oatmeal, and like those were my 3 meals. I had each of those twice a day. Yeah. And I was working out 6 times a week. The last probably month, I was working out 6 times a week and doing cardio at least once a day, if not twice a day. Right. And for some of my cut, I was traveling. So I used to literally bring a hot plate, and I would go to the store and get salmon or get whitefish. It was whitefish. It wasn't salmon in the cut. Right.
Whitefish thins the skin.
Whitefish, that's so they say. Yeah. And I would literally cook it in the hotel, to the point where one time I blew the fuse. I blew the entire hallway electricity because my hot plate was running so hot. So it was brutal. I had to get up early and go do cardio before work, and I had to go to the gym after. And every time I'm in a different state, so I'm in a different gym. I don't know where the equipment is. It was the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. And I went through my birthday. I went through the 4th of July. I went through my girlfriend at the time's birthday, and we did 2 weddings. And I never once cheated. I had a handful of M&Ms on the 4th of July. I told my coach. My coach was mad at me. But other than that, I never cheated. Not as much as a grain of rice more than I should have eaten.
And that's so, to me, that's really fascinating, because I love the psychology of all of this taking place, right? I mean, the fact that your coach gets mad at you for eating a handful of M&Ms just really, and it's not to knock the coach, like they do what they can with the knowledge they have, but it really speaks to sort of the disordered relationship that you end up developing around food and even kind of around your body. Did you find yourself getting hypercritical, or like, because to get lean enough to look good on stage is not an easy thing to do.
No.
Did you find your relationship with your body starting to get a little bit more disordered as well?
Not in a negative way, no. I was very proud. Like you could see every vein in my leg, and my legs were huge. It was great in terms of self-esteem. It was like, wow, I can't believe I built that. The problem was after, when, I had, the day of the show, I had already purchased 4 different kinds of mac and cheese and every snack you can imagine. And the problem is my hormones were so tanked that I think it's leptin. I don't know. There's 2 hormones that.
Yeah, leptin and ghrelin.
Yes. I couldn't stop eating. I could not humanly stop eating. I didn't, even when I felt full, my body didn't know I was full. It was this whole thing.
Yeah. So ghrelin is your hunger hormone. And I remember that because ghrelin's very much like gremlin. So I think of like a little gremlin inside you kind of screaming, you know, and leptin is the hormone that's supposed to signal that you've had enough. Let's turn off the off switch. The problem is we can become desensitized to it. And so the brain's not registering, hey, you've had enough physically, you know. So that's quite a thing to go through. Did you end up gaining a significant amount of post-show weight, or?
I think I probably got back up to a little bit more than I was before, but I mean, there was like a 3-week stretch where I couldn't even button my pants at work. I couldn't even bend over to tie my shoes at points. It was, I'll never forget, John, we went out to breakfast. I went out to breakfast with one of my coworkers, and I got pancakes. And I asked the waitress, I said, can I get like ice cream on there too? And it was like 10 in the morning. And she's like, I guess. And I said, I'll have that, please. It was looking back at the time, you don't really know what's happening. Right. Yeah. But with a new higher level of awareness, I had that, you know, a couple of years ago where I looked back and said, I definitely had some form of a post-show eating disorder, 100%.
Yeah. Yeah. Which is super common. Yeah. Yeah. Fascinating. Throw some ice cream on there. Maybe put an extra little bit of butter between
whatever
the pancakes, you know?
Yeah. I'll take it.
And, you know, it's really interesting because there's a huge amount of pleasure that can be derived from this, you know, but whenever we start going down that track, there's also the opposite side of that coin, which is when that wears off. Yeah. Did you find yourself starting to, or experiencing any kind of depressive episodes?
Yeah. I don't know if it was directly correlated to that, but what I will tell you is one of the things the bodybuilding industry, I don't want to say industry, me doing that show turned me more into a recluse than I was before, because I don't want to go out. I'm just going to say no to the food and the drinks. So like, what are we doing? I just want to stay inside and watch movies. So it was really hard for me to come out of that after. Yeah. Unfortunately, obviously I didn't learn my lesson because I signed up to do another show the following year, but I was laying in bed one night. And if you're a competitor, if you ever competed out there, you know this feeling when you can literally feel your stomach it's growling, but it's beyond a growl. It's a scream. And I got up and I said, honestly, I'm not going to do this. I went downstairs. I grabbed a pint of Ben & Jerry's. I started eating it. I texted my coach and said, hey, I'm not putting myself through this again. I can't do it. And that was it. Yeah. That was the last time I ever even thought about it.
Yeah. And it's fascinating because, I think the industry has shifted, and maybe the narratives around it, they've shifted quite a bit, but we still, I think, have burned into our consciousness this idea that achieving these sorts of aesthetic physiques is actually healthy. And it's admirable. It's a mark of discipline. You can't buy this. You got to put yourself through it and grind and hustle and work hard. But to equate that to health is a whole different story. Yeah. And so that's really, really fascinating. So you decide, hey, I'm not going to do this. I'm walking away from this. So where do you go from there?
From there, I think I probably took a little bit of time off from exercise in general, and I've fallen back in love with it. So that's all good and grand. But from there, it was just normal life. It was doing the work thing. It was doing the podcast thing. And what really shifted my life more than anything is one day, after I was, I felt so out of alignment with my job. I just didn't want to do it anymore. I didn't have the drive. I didn't care about the money, which is weird for me because I'm a very money-driven individual. But I woke up in New Jersey, crusty hotel room. It's cold, it's dark, it's winter, and it's one of those soul-sucking mornings where it's like, I cannot do this today. I can't do this. So I slide to the end of the bed. I lace up my work boots. I've done it hundreds of times before. And John, the best way to explain it is there's 10 televisions on in my head at the same time, and everyone's on a different channel. And one said, you're stuck here forever. Don't even think of leaving. What will your friends think? What will your family think? How are you ever going to make $100 an hour again? And do you really think you could ever be a successful podcaster for your job? And in that moment, and unfortunately, this wasn't the first time I had felt this pain, but in that moment, I felt like the best thing for me to do was to take my life. Because if I took my life, I would take my problems with me. And it's a weird feeling being 5 hours away from anybody who loves you and not wanting to live anymore. It doesn't seem like there's a lot of reasons to keep going. But luckily, my business partner, the co-host and the co-founder of our business, I messaged him on Snapchat and I said, hey man, I'm really going through it here. I don't know what's going on. I don't know what I'm supposed to do here, but I don't want to do this anymore. And he said, Kev, so much about you internally has changed over the last year or so, but your environment is very much still the same. I think it's time for you to make a change. And that was my rock bottom basement of when you're that low, there's really nowhere else to go. And I ended up leaving that job 3 or 4 months later, and I went full time into what we're doing today. Now, that's not where the story ends. I was broke for 3 years. I put myself into $30,000 of credit card debt. I had to learn a whole bunch of stuff, but I was more fulfilled being broke, doing what I loved, than being quote unquote wealthy, doing something I didn't enjoy at all.
Absolutely. So you said you hit kind of rock bottom, and you were lending consideration to ending it all. Mm-hmm. How close did you get, and what turned it around for you?
I think for me, it's been more of a thought than I never put together a plan.
Right.
So
okay.
I earlier, I don't think it was that year. I think it was probably 2 years prior, but I remember being home alone, and I lived with my girlfriend and another couple at that point. We had the 3rd floor bedroom, and it was this beautiful house in Boston, and it was everything seemed amazing. And I was home alone, and I remember thinking to myself, there has to be more to life than this. Mm-hmm. It was just empty. It was lonely. It was dark. And I didn't want to keep going. I just didn't want to live the life that I was living anymore. I've never planned anything. I've never taken anything with the intent, but I have had those dark moments of what the hell am I doing here? And why am I still here? I've had those moments. What turns it around was Alan painted a brighter picture for a brighter future for me. That was really what it was. I think I needed somebody to say, hey, you're better than this, right? Like, you can do so much more than you're doing. There's a way out that's not the way that you think. And that's really what shifted it for me.
So you use this phrase, out of alignment. And alignment is a term that I think gets thrown around a lot. Maybe there's even an element of it's a little bit cliche. But what does it mean for you? You're living out of alignment. Is there a way to express that maybe feels a little more grounded?
Yeah, so it's probably not even going to be more grounded. It's probably going to be less grounded, but I'll take it from Alan. Alan has taught me a lot about this. It's your soul's recognition with you being the best version of you doing what you're supposed to be doing. I think that when it comes to relationships, people know they're out of alignment, but it just feels wrong, or it doesn't feel right, or when you leave someplace, you feel like dirty. It's like, I shouldn't have stayed there for so long. That's just you being out of alignment. When you're in alignment, it feels right. Even when it's hard, even when it's difficult, even when you feel like you're losing, you feel like you're doing the right thing. And I think that's the best analogy for me. We interviewed somebody yesterday. Her name is Danielle Murr. We interviewed her 4 years ago. And after we interviewed her, Alan and I went to her house, and she invited us in, which was amazing. We had been listening to her since we were young because she's a radio personality in the Boston area. So she's a local celebrity. Never thought I'd ever meet her. Never thought about that. After we interviewed her, we stopped at a beach on the way home, and I just cried. I just sat on the beach and cried because I felt like for the first time in my life, I was in alignment for what I was really supposed to be doing. And I think it's a hard feeling to explain, but it's an easy feeling to recognize once you understand it.
That's a good way of putting it. So now this is kind of interesting, and I want to maybe push this button a little bit and kind of explore this, but because we live in a really fortunate country, a really fortunate land, we have a lot of opportunity available to us. Yes. And so when I've had the privilege of living and traveling in third world countries where people don't really have, there simply isn't the same level of opportunity. Mm-hmm. No matter how much they try to think about it, they could think about abundance, they could try to manifest things and so on. But literally, it's not a physical reality. And we could say to them, well, you just don't believe hard enough, or you just don't have enough faith, or so on. So for people who might, let's say, might be skeptical or cynical towards this idea of like alignment of, I don't know if you use the term abundance or things like manifesting in sort of your language, but what would you say to people who might hold that up as an example of, well, it's not just about mindset?
Yeah, I will definitely admit that I am a white male in one of the easiest places to live on the planet. So 100%, I have opportunities that other people don't. I just think it's, what can you do to get better? You might not be able to do the same thing that I'm going to do. That's probably not a possibility for for many humans out there. But can you better what you're doing now? I think that's the question, is how do you improve your circumstances by a little bit? By a little bit. I would be lying if I said I expect I don't want to say most humans to ever get where we are. It won't happen. It can't happen because of the unique opportunity that Alan and I have, and Alan and I together. It almost can't happen for somebody to get to 900 episodes, to have what we have, the business. It's like, that's a 1% of 1% of 1% of 1% of 1% thing. So I would be lying if I said that anybody can do whatever they want. Now, if you asked me 5 years ago, John, I would have said anything is possible. And if you believe in it, you can do it. I realize now that there are quantum abilities. I am not going to play in the NBA. It's just not going to happen.
Yeah.
And it may, maybe somebody's saying, well, you're selling yourself short. No, I am short. I'm not selling myself short. I am short. I'm not going to play in the NBA. So if somebody is out there and they're disadvantaged, or they don't have the opportunities, or whatever, they're in a community or a religion or whatever it may be, I think all you can do is improve to your ceiling. And I think everybody, unfortunately, everybody has a different ceiling. And you can try to raise that ceiling, and a lot of people are doing that. And I think that's amazing. And I think that's what we all should be doing. But yeah, I think it's important to state that not everybody is going to have that dream life.
Which I think is really honest, and I appreciate that, because that's spoken with a lot of integrity. Because what I see, I've spent time in maybe what I could call the guru sphere. I do mentor some coaches. I've been mentored many times, and maybe that's why I poke at this question a little bit. Call it an integrity test, because I see this being promised to people, like, we're going to give you the life of your dreams, and it's like, well, you can't really promise that. But you're hitting on something I think that's really, really important here. And it's like, I think just about every situation or circumstance we find ourselves in, there is a possibility to make it a little bit better. And what makes it a little bit more better, maybe livable, tolerable, something, we need to have a little bit of hope that this is even a possibility. But that it feels like there's some kind of meaning to the life that we have, whether that's the relationship we might have with our family, with our spouse, with our kids, that kind of thing. And so maybe it's digging for more than that, than just maybe the appearance of sort of financial success. Because as you've highlighted in your own story, you enjoyed a degree of financial success, and you get there and you go, oh, this isn't what I thought. Like this was what I've been told will make me happy. So I wanted to touch on something else here. A little bit early on, you mentioned the phrase money driven. Do you consider yourself to still be money driven? And if so, why is that?
100%. Yeah. I'm the CFO of our company. So like every single day I'm in the spreadsheet seeing what's going on. I was sending emails to clients before this. Yeah, I am very money driven. I think one of the reasons is I grew up in a household that had very little of it. And I know what it's like to not know if you're going to be able to pay your bills. I know what it's like to not know if you're going to be able to pay rents. I know what that pain feels like. And this is the other thing. When I became an entrepreneur, I didn't understand the level of uncertainty that came with that. I had no clue that it was going to take. I joke about it all the time. It has taken parts of me that I will never get back. I'm not even kidding. That's serious. But it's also given me parts of me that I never would have had before. I am money driven for a couple of reasons. One, I am a human being who requires a high level of certainty. I just am. I'm a very certainty driven. But two, I believe in impacting people directly. And one of the ways you can impact people directly is monetarily. It is. And part three, the more money our business makes, the more impact we're able to have. So I believe the formula now more than ever, and this isn't the way I'm wired, but I think this is the way it works. It's mastery, impact, money. The reason I make more money now than I used to is because I've mastered more things. I'm hopefully a better speaker than I was 5 years ago, and a better coach, and a better podcaster, and a better business owner. Our impact is bigger than it's ever been. So the next thing in there, if you understand business, is money. And a lot of people want to get the money without the mastery. That's what happened to me. I got the money, but I wasn't good at anything. I wasn't a competent human being. I just showed up and punched the clock and did my thing. And I think that's why through the mastery, through the impact comes you giving back. It comes contribution. Contribution is directly correlated to fulfillment. Growth and contribution are the two things that I didn't have when I was suicidal. And for much of this journey, it's the only thing I did have. And I think that alludes to why I was happier.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and that's really interesting because we live in a culture that really promotes instant gratification, and I believe has conditioned us to expect that this road should be easy. Whether it's working with somebody in the realm of weight loss, whether it's working a business. I mean, I've had 2 businesses fail, and have cost me my life savings. So I know some of the hardships around that, and I know that many businesses have failed throughout this pandemic through no fault of these people running these businesses, but conditions that were outside of their control. And so again, I appreciate the honesty, because it's not just an easy question to answer to say, hey, this is why I'm money driven. You talk about impact. What when you say impact, and I want to create more impact, what are you picturing here?
So for us, and for me particularly, I am a very depth-driven impact person. So I like being one-on-one with people, which honestly, a lot of the stuff I do is not sustainable. Like I send videos to any new followers I have. I want to change people's lives one-on-one, where they say, wow, that person, that interaction, that conversation, that lesson changed my life. The wonderful thing about the podcast is we can do it with breadth too. Right? So 120 countries, there's people that hear us. It doesn't require me being there. So impact is giving somebody the knowledge, or giving somebody the tactic, or giving somebody the deeper understanding that they need in order to make a new decision that will then impact somebody else. So we think about, okay, cool, my podcast has 100 downloads, but what if every one of those 100 people impacted one other person? Then you have 200 impact level. And that's what it is to us. Is the reason we do what we do, one of the big reasons, is a lot to what you've alluded to. If I had self-improvement in my past, I never would have done a lot of the things I did. And I think that we are in this time in society where ego-driven individuals win at such a high level, and that's not who I aspire to be. I want to have real impact through my character as much as anything else. And it's like, I appreciate that you said that was an honest, transparent answer, but I don't want to lie. I don't want to. I think there's too many people that do, John. And to your point, most human beings will never get to where we are in the podcast game. You just won't. I'm not saying you can't. That's the difference. I'm not saying you can't. But are you willing to work 7 days a week for 5 days, for 5 years in a row, never miss an episode, do everything that scares you, be broke, learn all these things? If not, that's okay. I don't blame you. But I will never promise somebody they will have the level of success we have, because most humans won't. And this is the other thing. Most humans don't want it. Most people don't want to do 900 episodes. So I do believe a lot of people are lied to about what's possible and probable. Even more that. What's possible for you and what's probable for you are 2 entirely different things, depending on your drive and so many other things too, so many other facets of human design.
Absolutely. And so, but it's of course inevitable that in order to market that, let's say you're good at what you do, you have to talk about your own success and give that as an example. Oh, because I've achieved this level of success, I can help you achieve a certain degree of success. But it's really hard, I mean, I do the same thing when I work with coaches, right? I just explain that, like, I can't make you successful. Same when I work with someone in the realm of weight loss. It's like, I can't lose the weight for you. I say, I'm your tour guide, not your Sherpa. I can't carry your backpack for you. It's the one thing I try to avoid saying is, oh, you didn't want this bad enough. Because I think that's I think it's quite a callous thing to say, because of course everybody's grappling with different things in their life. But I like your definition of impact, and that's why I like to have these conversations, is because it does create an opportunity for that. So, you run Next Level University. Why don't you tell us a little bit about what that is? Because this is the vehicle for you to create some impact. You talk about doing over 900 episodes. What exactly are you podcasting about, and what is Next Level University?
So Next Level University is our podcast. Thank you. It is our goal. This is our 10-word description. It is heart-driven, but no BS, holistic self-improvement for entrepreneurs. So if you couldn't tell, it's heart-driven. Everything I say, I mean with love, but it's the no BS of, look, I'm not going to pull the wool over your eyes. And honestly, John, that's why we're not more successful. I know that for certain. Our marketing sucks. We're not good at dressing up hard work. We're not good at dressing up hard work. So Next Level University, the top of our brand is the podcast, 7 episodes a week. every single day on all the platforms and YouTube. But under that, we have a whole bunch of different stuff. We have a whole bunch of different free options for people. We have one-on-one coaching, group coaching, retreats, live events. Our goal is to help you wherever you are in your life. So maybe you can't afford a $150 an hour coach. Okay, cool. Maybe you want to do group coaching, which is cheaper. Or maybe you want to download a free course. It's totally free. There's no strings attached, right? That's kind of what we're going for. Is I know at one time I couldn't afford a one-on-one coach, but that doesn't mean I didn't want to get better. It doesn't mean I didn't want to get better. So wherever you are in your life, there's always a next level, and our goal is to help you get there.
Right. Yeah. And in doing so, you actually potentially create customers for yourself by helping them,
for sure.
which you elevate people, and they can move to the next level. Yep. I find it interesting what you said there, that you could potentially be more successful if you were a little bit dishonest.
For sure. 100%.
And I think that's a struggle in like the industry that I work in as well, in a sense, because I tell people the truth about what it is they're trying to accomplish, because I understand it's my lived experience, and not just my lived experience, but with the hundreds of clients I've worked with, that this is actually a difficult thing to do. But we're conditioned to, hey, 12 weeks to this, 3 months to this, 90 days to this, 30-day fix, 21-day fix, whatever. This idea that it's just around the corner. And I think if we could, there is a shift in terms of people understanding the reality of this is, you know what, this might actually take time. Yeah. But I think we shouldn't be treating this like this is a bad thing. So, I am where I am today. And you talked about if you'd had self-improvement maybe earlier in life, you wouldn't have gone through what you went through. But I'm willing to bet that you wouldn't remove your past, because it's shaped who you are. And I'm exactly the same way. I've been through some pretty crazy life experiences that I would not remove from my past, because I would not be doing what I am today had I not been through those experiences. And if we can communicate this and say to people, don't wish your way out of this, because this is where the growth is actually happening. And the truth about growth is, it's not we hop on my unicorn and ride the rainbow bridge to the clouds. It's like we're going to go kayaking through a tunnel of sewage, and it's going to suck and stink and be dark and smelly and unpredictable. Like that's the reality of change. Yep. But on the other side you get to live with purpose. You get to live with meaning. You get to live in a way that you probably didn't imagine possible. Yeah.
Growth requires conflict in anything. Growth requires conflict. It requires resistance. And again, we talked about the fitness thing, and this is heart driven, but no BS. You can't wish your way to the body of your dreams. It's going to require actual movement and effort. It just does. And we're in this weird spot now where an influencer can hop on Instagram and say, I built my business by manifesting everything. Little do you know that this person was connected with millionaires, or they went viral, whatever it may be. This is the one thing, if you're out there, don't work with somebody who can't tell you how they got the result they got. There's a lot of people trying to teach people how to get rich when they don't know how they got rich. Can't do it. You can't do it because you don't know what actually works. So exactly what you said, it's important to understand that it takes work, because that's where the knowledge comes in. That's where the competence comes in. If I gave you $1 million check right now and you're not competent in terms of understanding, you're probably going to lose it all. I know I would have. You gave me a $1 million check 10 years ago. It was gone.
Hey, 70% of lottery winners go bankrupt in 3 years or less. Yeah. I would like to think that those stats have changed because perhaps they educate lottery winners a little bit better now, because they realize this is a real crisis. You win the lottery. And it speaks to, this is where it gets interesting. We think from a brain-based perspective, the beliefs that we hold about ourselves, right? And our sense of identity. It didn't really change. Handing you money didn't change you as a person. Correct. And so the behaviors, the patterns of behavior that you were in will continue, just at a slightly different level, because of the money that you have. Yep. And so there is this idea that if you just hand me some money, that it will solve all my problems. And the reality is it won't. Yeah.
To your point, behavior. Your behaviors determine your fundamentals, and your fundamentals determine your level of success in some way, shape, or form. Again, the fitness thing too. If you got the body of your dreams out there and you don't know how to maintain it, you're probably not going to be able to keep it. And that's why there's so much knowledge out there. There's so much opportunity to learn. We have to really dive in. And again, I didn't read a book until I was 26. So I completely understand. I'm not preaching from the soapbox, but if you think about it, we talk about health, wealth, and love. Those are probably the 3 least studied things. Health, there's so many opportunities to learn about health. Wealth, there's a million books. Are they boring? Absolutely. They're super boring. And then love. Love. Why the divorce rate in the country I live in, the United States, is 50% depending on where you look.
Yeah,
I think it's because we don't study it. We don't study and we expect it to just succeed, and it's not going to.
Well, I think about how the romantic comedy sort of genre, and which is a spin-off of the fairy tale genre, really. Yeah. This is what a romantic relationship looks like, when in reality, it's like I've been married for 16 years, been together with my wife for, it'll be coming up on 17 years. Yes. And so the idea that like somehow this has all been hunky-dory, I'm like, man, we've had some really tough patches. But here's the one thing. We made a commitment to each other and we meant it. We said, till death do us part. And we said that knowing we were, in a sense, we had no idea what we were stepping into. I don't mean we could see the future, but we said that knowing that it's almost inevitable that we're going to go through some really hard times. But we anchored ourselves to, this is what we committed to, and it's going to be uncomfortable. And we've had plenty of times where we butted heads pretty severely. But underlying all of that was this commitment. We're in this to the death. And so that means we have to figure out how to make this work. And I think it's kind of the same with everything. And as you said, to be successful, to grow and to develop requires some kind of struggle. It requires some kind of trade-off, some kind of compromise. And it's what is it you're willing to compromise? And that gets more difficult in the 21st century world that we live in, that offers us an infinite amount of emotional anesthetic. I feel uncomfortable. I can play video games. I can watch Netflix. I can eat junk food. I can consume alcohol. There's so many ways to just kind of escape reality. Yeah. And that's really kind of tapping into this primal brain that we have that would like to do that. And so I say to people, we need to connect to an emotionally compelling reason. So something that makes us willing to be uncomfortable. So for me, I think about like my son. I don't want to be a sideline dad. I don't want to have to sit on the couch and be like, sorry, kid, I can't get down on the floor and play with you. Yeah. That's not how I want to, I want him to think my dad is present. My dad plays with me. He runs with me. That's why I want to do it.
It's necessity. Yeah. It's you have more necessity than somebody who doesn't have that necessity yet. I have a very hard agreement with myself of, Kev, either you do what you know you have to do, or you just don't get the results you want. And then you can't blame anybody, and you can't be frustrated. I mean, you can be frustrated. And when I say you can't blame, you can't be frustrated, I mean, you know better. You know what you're trying to do. And if you don't accomplish it, that's got to be on you, especially if you know you're not doing the right things. And it's a hard conversation. And just to touch on the relationship thing really quickly, it's who do I think I can get through it all with? That's what a relationship is. Who can I make it through all of this with, and that I love and I want to get better with, and I want to grow with, and I want to have the difficult conversations with, and I want to get better at having the difficult conversations with. And I believe that a lot of people are set up for failure. Yeah. We never fight. We've never had an argument. I don't believe that. I don't believe that. Because what life are you living in? Where are you living?
Yeah. Well, one last question for you here. And this is going back to, you said that you had that girlfriend that left you. Have you ever maintained any kind of communication with her? Or have you ever had conversations with her, said, hey, you know what? It was probably the best thing. Or what's the status of that?
Yeah, we actually talked. I mean, we're friendly. We're on friendly terms. Yep. We talked at one point after, and it was a very wonderful conversation of, that was a huge point of growth for both of us. And she's out. What I didn't say is, at one point she wanted to move across the country and chase her dreams. And I told her she shouldn't, because I was so scarce. I was so insecure. She went across the country and chased her dreams, and she's doing her thing. I'm doing my thing. So I said, I'm proud of you. First of all, I'm sorry if I slowed you down in any way, shape, or form. That was on me. I was insecure.
Hey, it was where you were at.
That's where I was at. And now I'm the guy who tells people to go live their dreams. So it's even harder for me to think about it. But we're on good terms. She's doing her thing. I'm doing mine. And I think that was an interesting jumping off point for both of us to learn more about who we are. So, yeah.
Yeah. So one final thought. When you tell people to chase their dreams, I wonder what people picture versus what that actually looks like in real life.
I don't think you can really think about the result. I think you have to think about the process. So I don't want to know what you want out of life. I want to know what you want to be doing. And that's how I picture it. Of when people say, where do you want to be in 10 years? That's a question I get on podcasts a lot.
Sure.
I want to be doing the same exact thing I'm doing today, just more exponential.
Yeah.
I don't know where I'll be living. I'm sure it'll be a house bigger than this and whatever, but I want to be podcasting. I want to be speaking. I want to be coaching, and I want to be married, and I want to have potentially kids, whatever it is. I want to be doing the process that I'm doing now forever, just better and better and better. If you're out there, you got to think of what is your ideal day.
Yeah.
What is your ideal day? Not what is your ideal house, not what is your ideal car. What is your ideal day? What do you want to be doing? What do you want to be being? We're human beings, not human havings. And again, it's coming from the guy who is very guilty of this. So please don't take it the wrong way.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let's see. How about final thoughts to close out the episode before we hit with the outro here?
2 things. The biggest difference between who you are and who you want to be is your habits. That's first thing. And the second one, please really, really sit with this and listen. Are the people in your past, are the people in your life the best from your past or the best for your future? I think a lot of us think we have loving relationships when we really have relationships that are based on people giving us attention or just being there. We want company more than we want love. Really check in with your relationships because they're contributing to a lot of where you're going in life. And, you know, those are 2 difficult things to think of, but sometimes it's the difficult things that create the biggest changes in our lives.
That's amazing. We'll wrap it up there. Thank you so much, Kevin, for joining. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Likewise, John. I appreciate you.
Thank you so much for tuning in to Between the Before and After. If you've enjoyed this episode, please like, share, subscribe, or leave a review because that helps this podcast to reach and inspire more people. I love exploring the stories that take place between the before and after, the powerful experiences that shape who we become, and I love human potential. I love the possibilities that lie within us. So whatever you may be up against, I hope these stories inspire you because if you're still here, your story's not done yet, so keep moving forward.
Anyone can come from any place of brokenness and destitution and build an amazing life.